أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are learning a very precious lesson, valuable teaching from the seventh Imam, Imam Musa Al Kadhem alayhi salam, as we are approaching the day of commemoration of his martyrdom on 25th of Rajab. When we talk about Imam Musa Al Kadhem alayhi salam, the very first picture appears in front of us is how he was mistreated by the Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid, put in jail many times, depriving the Muslim nation from benefiting from the ocean of knowledge that the household of the Prophet ﷺ used to provide, used to illuminate everybody, awaken the minds and open the eyes in every minute of their teachings and pearls of wisdom they would offer. Yes. Look, when we look at Imam Musa Al Kadhem alayhi salam and remember his legacy, his teachings, his role in guiding the nation as an error-free Imam from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's progeny, we remember one session that in which the Imam alayhi salam taught Hisham ibn al-Hakam, a student who used to be student of his father, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Now, he is a very famous scholar, very prominent teacher of his time, and learning from Imam about the intellect, the role of intellect, the authenticity of intellectual reasoning for deducing the law from its sources, the Islamic law from its sources, the role of intellect in guiding us to the truth if you use it in the right way, appropriate manner. The analysis you make by intellectual reasoning to guide you. The Imam alayhi salam explained to Hisham that inna lillahi hujjatain. There are two proofs, two guides. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it available to humankind in order to widen their knowledge, to give them a better comprehension about the truth in everything. حجة ظاهرة وحجة باطنة. One is external and the other one is internal. The external guide refers to the role of the prophets and messengers throughout the history, whom were appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide the humankind. But the internal proof of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the internal guide from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the intellect. And that is so significant to stick to it, to make use of it, and understand its value. The Imam alayhi salam said that In the intellectual reasoning, we find all the logical debates and the possibility of weighing, assessing everything in the right manner. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is part of the teaching of Imam to Hisham ibn al-Hakam. Allah praised those who follow the intellect, praised those who are on the minority, but condemned those who are on majority. How could this be understood? We read many ayat in the Quran, brothers and sisters, condemning the majority. أكثرهم لا يعقلون أكثرهم للحق كارهون أكثرهم and all فاسقون. All these ayat says that, look, don't be fooled, don't be misled when you see that the majority of people are doing something and you think that that is the right thing. No. On the contrary, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِي الشَّكُورِ. So, the majority, according to the ayat, are ignorant, they are on the wrong track, they are not following the truth, but the minority are always understanding and acting upon what is pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So beware, if you see that the majority of people are doing something, don't take it as a measure for truth. No. It is the possibility of them are going on the wrong direction. Then the Imam starts to tell Hisham about the army of intellect and the army of ignorance. 75 soldiers in the camp of intellect, and these are confronted by 75 soldiers in the camp and in the army of ignorance. So this is intellect, this is ignorance, al-aql and al-jahl, and under each one are supporters, followers. Let's call them army, as the Imam alayhi salam did call them army, junud al-aql and junud al-jahl. I give you a few examples of those 75. For example, sincerity in confrontation with hypocrisy, content with opposite of it, greed, the humbleness when it's compared to arrogance, the self-denial which is confronted by selfishness, justice confronted by injustice, and so on. So it is a very nice comparison, two lists. The virtues all virtues are summarized in one list under the banner of intellect, and all the vices are summarized under one banner, and that is the ignorance. Of course, brothers and sisters, the Imam wants to tell us that in this way, everybody wants to be known and referred to as being intellectual. And everybody is avoiding being named or labeled as ignorant. So if you really understand the difference between these two different paths, two different ways of life, to different ways of acting and behaving. So you have to consider yourself, are you following all these virtues, or you are following those which belong to vices? And by that only we can evaluate, know how every person has his right place in the community or within the whole society. This is in reality something which is unique in the teachings of Imam Musa Al Kadhem alayhi salam, Musa ibn Ja'far, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Now, when we remember that Harun al-Rashid, the Abbasid Caliph, mistreated the Imam, put them in jail. Why? History tells us that Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam, of course, used to live in Medina, and that is in neighborhood or adjacent to the grave of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his great grandfather. Now, Harun Rashid comes to Medina to visit the mosque, the holy mosque of Medina, to pay homage to Imam Musa, to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It happens that they meet together, and when Harun Rashid addresses the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam by paying respect to him, by visitation, he says that, peace upon you, O cousin, because that the Abbasids are the descendants of Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, and that was the Prophet's uncle. And now the Hashemites, or the Imams from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, are descendants of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam via Lady Fatima salamullah alayha. So he said that, Assalamu alayka yabna al-am. But it was natural, it is very obvious that Imam Musa Al Kadhem says, Assalamu alayka ya jadda, peace upon you, O grandfather. This type of salutation or addressing the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam made Harun Rashid angry. And that very moment, he considered that as a challenge, which wasn't. It was only the natural way of greeting his grandfather. And history tells us again that he said, Oh, Allah's Messenger, I apologize that I have no solution but to put this Musa ibn Ja'far in the jail, because if he remains alive and free, he will cause the bloodshed, disunity amongst the Muslim nation. Brothers and sisters, see how politicians, those who are seizing the power, dominating everything, they think any opinion which doesn't fit with their whatever, opinions, they consider it as a challenge and threat. And of course, when that image comes in their mind, they try to suppress, to put an end, and that was what happened. So, did the Imam during the jail, which was jailed in Basra, Iraq, southern Iraq, and later was brought to Baghdad with the jail which was supervised by Al-Fadl ibn Yahya al-Barmaki, released for a while, again put in another occasion, which was 3 times or 4 times of being restrained and put in jail, and this time with someone who was in charge of the jail, and that is the As-Sindi ibn Shahak. The Imam was mistreated in all. The pressure was so bad. In one report we read that it was dark, even no window, no access. The Imam even could not see the difference between day and night. Of course, he did not stop his role as an Imam. He would receive the questions and the requirement for guidance from people, and he would answer. And we have in our source of hadith, I mean, a huge correspondence between the Imam and those who remained loyal to him, those who knew who he was, sending the questions to him, receiving the answers in writing, and that was continuously happening during the time of jail. And of course, he appointed deputies because the accessibility was not free for everybody, and that was the solution to communicate with people. People communicate with him via the deputies. But in one occasion, the Imam wrote a letter to Harun al-Rashid, and he said, "Look, Harun, no day passes from your joy, but it is a lapse in my suffering. So every day I am in jail, you are enjoying your life, lavish life, all right? But I am here under pressure. But look, one day my fate will finish, your fate will come to an end, and we meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will judge between us, and then those who did wrong will regret all that atrocity." Brothers and sisters, when we commemorate the martyrdom of the 7th Imam, Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam, we remember his role as an Imam, his guidance, pairs of wisdom that I mentioned only a very little and few parts of it. And let's ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to follow and act upon his teachings. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.